The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Understanding from reading and that the last couple of years, even that has been suppressed, that no one, but there's been some early, quote, documents that prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he is improperly using a Social Security number that's not his. Now, what's happened in the last couple of years, Susan? Have they masked that as well?
Well, the thing that bothers me is, I filed a lawsuit here in Ohio in 2012. And I filed it against the Secretary of State. And in the effort to keep his name off the ballot until it was proven that that was a legitimate number. Well, of course, a Republican judge tossed it, which substantiated my theory that there is no longer a two-party system.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I totally agree. It's one big giant cabal.
It is. It is. It's everybody CYA and not wanting their payroll to end. And but they what got me is when I had a hearing, a court hearing. Nobody showed up from the Secretary of State's office, so the judge took on the role of the defense attorney.
I remember all that. Sure.
It was a mess. I mean, I tried to report him to the Ohio Disciplinary Council of the Supreme Court, and they blew it off. And even his court reporter, when she did the transcript of the hearing, left out things he said that made him look bad, and then swore that it was a true and accurate depiction of what happened.
So, again, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Susan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Peter, I have tried to contact at least 30 different Republican congressmen and senators. Some I went so far as to send a copy of the lawsuit, which included all the documentation. There were 83 pages of documents proving what I was alleging, and not one of them ever responded.
Yeah.
And I mean, pick a big name that you hear in the news every day, and those are the people I contacted. Now, the only people I have any respect for at all left is Trey Gowdy, Ted Cruz, Lee, Hewell's Camp, a couple other people. The rest,
I've had people that I've had private conversations with who are not on that level of Ted Cruz, but maybe 1-2 levels below that, who said everybody in Washington, I'm paraphrasing, everybody in Washington, D.C. knows the story's not straight, but no one will do anything about it.
Yes, and that's exactly true.
Yeah.
It is absolutely true. They know he is a fraud. The story I always heard is, well, they're afraid to say anything because they're afraid there'll be race riots.
Oh, sure, of course. That happens to me all the time.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we see these kids go 300 at a time going through stores and tearing things off the shelves anyway. I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a pathetic excuse to use for not doing the right thing.
Well, exactly. And, I mean, I've even had people who I used to get cartooned against, and I was they used to write editorials about me in the local papers being this.
Hey, as long as they spell your name right.
Well, that's right. What time are you on the air? But and I've invited every one of those people to come on the show and say, let's discuss the truth about Barack Obama. I get two answers. I get two responses. One is no response, and the other is I will not appear on your hate show. No, but that's the way that you can dodge having to have to deal with the truth. And so these guys are out there. They really do exist. And I've been told by people that I have respect for, but nobody in Washington, D.C., now I don't know what that means, that believes the story is straight.
It means that no politician believes it's true. Now, what I keep hoping is every time I hear Trey Gowdy or Ted Cruz go off on Obama, I say a silent prayer that they actually did read what I sent to their homes, and that though they never responded, I hope that maybe that helps push them to realize what an absolute fraud this guy is.
Can I hold you through a break, Susan?
Sure.
All right, hang on. She's terrific, and her name is Susan Daniels, and she's doing the SSN number, strangely believe it. So I apologize, and it's no fault of our station. Our server is down. It's out of Chicago. And we have all of this stuff up, the SSN stuff and the birth certificate stuff. And we also have that MOK covered-up statue. I'm getting emails. Do you think Big Brother and Eric Holder are working on your server? Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS, voice of the people, on the line with us. P.I. Susan Daniels, who has been investigating the life of Barack Obama, and her end of this is Barack Obama's Connecticut Social Security number. And again, I do apologize. Our server is down because all of Susan's investigations are up on our website. Our server's down. It's not happening in the station. It happens out of Chicago, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have all of that ready. So just a brief overview. Susan, when people say, and I loved how you responded, because you respond like I respond. I've read and chased this thing for 9 years. When I'm asked who is Barack Obama, I say, and I've listened to Jack Cashill, Joel Gilbert. I mean, some guys have they have a grasp on who they think he is, but no one has anything definite, do they?
No.
But I'm sorry, I'll ask the question. The official story is false. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right, begin again. What do you think, or who do you think he is?
I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea who his father is, I don't know anything about him. I know he was raised in probably the most dysfunctional family that has ever existed. I mean, he had a mother that abandoned him who was a communist. He had grandparents who were communists. They moved to Washington so his mother could go to a communist school. He had a tranny nanny when he lived in Indonesia.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
I mean, he's been surrounded by freaks his entire life.
When it comes to who he says he is, it changes. He's a pragmatist at best, where he's chameleon-esque, where he can lay down on anything, including plaid, and become it.
Yeah.
And it's all, I mean, I don't mean to disparage, but it's almost like this weird sociopathic ability.
Oh, he's crazy. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that he needs mental care.
Well,
he needs treatment.
Yeah, I mean, but having, like I said, Freud tells us, and, the keys to all of us lie in our childhood.
Right.
And, he's able to stand there, even as recently as about a year and a half ago, and tell these little school kids he knows what it's like not to be raised with a father, because his daddy left for Harvard when he was 2.5, pushing 3 years of age. They went to the airport to say goodbye. That's an absolute lie. His mother...
It is a lie.
Yeah.
His father left before he was a year old.
Well, not only that, they went to Seattle. He and his mother returned to Washington State when he's about 10 days old, and
Right.
all the paperwork's there. They were there. She went to school.
Right.
They see the rent checks. And the question always gets back to who's paying the rent? Who's paying for all of this stuff? And then she comes back. She meets Saturo. They move to Indonesia. His father, so he always does have a father or a father figure in his life, whether it's Gramps or Lolo or maybe
Frank
Marshall
Davis.
Thank you very much, Frank Marshall Davis. And so I don't know if I don't know if the definitive book will ever be written. I question that. Clearly, Dreams from My Father is not true.
No,
I'm not.
He didn't have the capability of writing
No,
that.
yeah, I think that was written by Bill Ayers.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of Dinesh D'Souza. I think he's pretty fraudulent himself. He says one thing and does another, but they claim D'Souza's now in the crosshairs because of what he wrote. I can't imagine if I was Barack Obama. Frankly, I'd leave D'Souza alone. I'd promote D'Souza because D'Souza believes his official story, and it's not true. Yeah. No, I'm with you. So we come to a conclusion here. We'll get you back. What would you, and when we have our servers working, people can look at this SSN, but the President of the United States uses a Social Security number
That is stolen.
that's stolen. I don't know what you say after that.
I mean, what else do you need to say? He's a felon. he is a felon for so many different reasons, but this is the most obvious. And of all the lawsuits that were filed against him, and I think there were in excess of 130,
Yeah, I've read that.
and most of them were thrown out on the ridiculous thing called standing.
Mm-hmm.
But the one I filed is the only one that had to do with the Social Security number. The rest had to do with his eligibility.
It's crazy. And
It is crazy.
It's the greatest story that I've ever hooked into, and it's a mystery. I think Winston Churchill said it about Stalin and Russia. It's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. I mean, I don't know who this guy is. I really don't. And the deeper I get into the investigation, the more staunch that answer is, I don't know.
No, and I'm in exactly the same place as you, Peter.
We'll talk ASAP. Susan, thanks for your work. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Peter. Good
Thank
talking to you.
Open lines, straight ahead.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.